A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of knocking. Could be enough sometimes just to throw that chain off a gear.
Yep.
Yeah, so the chain still wants to go over, and we are using some manual force, but it is an indication that it's not 100%. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna adjust that high limit screw, and if they are not marked, those screws are not marked, we're gonna have to look at the bottom of the screw, see which one's touching. Since we are in the smaller gear, that's our high speed gear. One screw should be touching a piece of metal, the other screw should be touching nothing, and this is the bottom of the screw.
And that's a number?
Those are typically a 3mm Allen tool to fit inside there. So with this one, we want to stop the derailleur from continuing to move to the right. So we're going to be screwing in that high limit screw to the right and just do a quarter turn to a half turn and then test. Still doing it, another quarter turn, half turn, and then test.
If none of your screws are touching, which one is it?
If none of the screws are touching, choose the one that's closest to touching. One's gonna be closer to a piece of metal than not. And as you're tightening, you may make contact with the derailleur and it's gonna start pushing the derailleur over to your left. And if you push too much, it'll make the derailleur push the chain up into the next available gear, which is your next biggest gear. So I just made an adjustment, doing the test, pulling the derailleur to the right, and doesn't want to go over. So that's really good. So now we want to make sure we didn't over tighten that screw. So that squeaking we got, that's the rear rotor dragging on the brake. We'll get to that one after. So you can test your your low limit screw. This is your low gear for your low speed climbing. You can push in that direction with your hand. Double check to make sure your limit screw's set properly. And just some pressure, enough to get a light flex. Everyone's strength is different. Anticipating the chain going into the spokes, but it's not making noise like it wants to go into the spokes, and a little bit of noise there. That's usually somewhere up here in the upper pulley wheel is getting really close to the spoke, but that may be because we just applied a little too much pressure. This guy has Popeye hands, so it might have been too much.
Can you try it?
Let me try it. So one, you can test the shifter. So when we can test our limit screw with our shifter, drop down, start coming up, and then once I'm here, I'm going to pedal slow in case the chain does want to go into the spokes. You're going to hit the brake, stop that wheel spinning. You can hit the lever even harder, like you want to continue into another gear up here. So I'm putting pressure, and nice and quiet. It doesn't sound like it wants to go off. Now I'm going to try physically with my hand. I'm going to push on my thumb right at the pivot point, bracing 2 fingers on top. And so I'm not using 100% pressure, but enough to maybe get a gentle flex. And I'm not getting it to go over. So he got it to go over, but he really put a lot of pressure, a little more than your derailleur's ever going to do, or even a real bumpy situation is going to make. Now we're going to drop down really fast, get a lot of speed and momentum, see if we can get this chain to fly off and go into the frame. That's our other test. And pedal pretty quickly. You want to be really aggressive and try and create a problem. So it stayed in place. This is a repair check, but could act differently once you're outside putting some pedal pressure on it. So that's good, it passed that test. What about, did we do a physical test this way?
Yep.
So we're gonna pull pressure this way as you're pedaling. So that's good. So we're getting a little bit of flex coming this way. The chain is staying on the gear, it's not going into the frame. So we're getting full range of motion. We got the high limit screw to stop the derailleur. As the chain's coming down, the derailleur stops, so it's just gonna stop the chain perfectly on this last gear. Now if you don't adjust the high screw properly, if we're screwed in too much, it could stop the chain completely from coming down to this gear. So if you screw in too tight, it's gonna push that derailleur in that direction. So now we want to make sure that it's going to come down to this gear nice and easy. So we're going to do a physical test, go up 1 gear, because we don't want a lot of momentum coming down. And we're just going 1 gear. Going to let go, release of the derailleur super fast. We're going to watch how fast the chain comes down, because we're relying on the spring to bring that chain down. Oh, so yeah, make sure you're just leave your shifter in the zeroed out, so no more clicks, no more downshift clicks. Okay, so no shifter right now, we're just using hand. So I'm going up 1 gear, so if this is a 12 speed, I'm in 11. I'm gonna let go really fast and pedal a little bit faster. So if you're pedaling slow, we're gonna get slow shifts. So that's pretty good there. I'm gonna release again. So speed-wise, it seems okay. I'll let you try that. So you're pedaling at a good cadence. Try and go up just 1 gear and then release. The reason we're going up 1 gear is we don't want that spring to have a lot of momentum. We want it to work for that last gear so we can watch the speed. So speed-wise, if you're satisfied with the speed, then you're probably okay. If it's moving really slow or hesitates, then our high limit screw is too tight, so you're gonna go counterclockwise. And that could be anywhere from 1/8 of a turn to 1/16, because you're right there.
It's perfect.
It feels pretty good. Okay, so that's pretty good. So between tightening up our derailleur, tightening up our hanger, aligning our hanger, and in the process we found out that our threads in the hanger were getting a little stripped. And that was probably due to having a loose bolt in the derailleur. If our attaching bolt starts to get loose, then the hanger is going to be shaking, which in turn is going to start beating up the threads on the inside. And that's what happened there. So we had to get inside with the chaser, clean those threads out, which meant taking out a little bit of metal, compromise, tighten up this guy, re-grease it. Right now we didn't even have to play with our barrel adjuster, which is our fine adjustment for all the gears in between. We just had to tighten up our high limit screw, which stopped the chain from going into the frame over here. Once those limit screws are set, then you should not have to touch them again. You set them, forget them, and then your go-to is your barrel adjuster.